Today's lesson is on Etude number 3, Study 3 by Leo Brouwer from his collection of 20 studies for classical guitar. These pieces are very important for our repertoire. They really provide us with great exercises to help developing players build facility, technique, and grow musicality. Study number 3 focuses our attention on a couple of specific problems. All etudes or studies help us to work on specific difficulties in our technique or in our musical understanding. And that's a perfect example for study number 3. The first problem that it asks of us is to start to develop a right-hand arpeggio pattern that utilizes thumb, middle, and index. So if we take a look at the score, you'll see that the entire piece is based on this pattern of thumb, middle, index. These are grouped into groupings of 3 notes. And in fact, the entire piece is in the meter of 12/8. So you're going to have in each measure 4 groupings of 3 notes. We would count each measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And as we practice these patterns, we want to focus on keeping those groupings of 3 incredibly even. So, before you even start to worry about the piece, I want to work on a simple exercise with you. I'd like for you to put your thumb, P, on the 3rd string. And what we're going to do is we're going to do an arpeggio that's really only on 2 strings. We're going to play thumb on the 3rd string. We're going to play middle on the 1st string, the high E, followed by index on the 1st string, high E. So we're doing a P, I, M, but all on 2 strings. 3rd string, 1st string, 1st string. And what I want you to do while you're practicing this is focus on keeping everything really even. And if you need to, count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can gradually speed up, but keep your counting even. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The hardest spot is between the index going back to the thumb. So you again keep your counting, and if you have to vocalize it or use a metronome, that's great. Focus on keeping it as even as possible. And again, as it becomes easier, increase the speed, but keep them even. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and pause the video and practice that. It's very important for us to get this exercise that becomes fluid and easy. Welcome back. I hope that you now feel a little bit better about your thumb, middle, index arpeggio. Now, as you're looking at the score for this piece, what you're going to notice is that the low E, for us, provides the foundation of what musically is going to happen above the low E. As you start the piece with this rest stroke, low E, you're going to have 3/8 notes of rest above it. So the next part starts on beat 4. So what I'd like to do is take a moment and work through just the low notes of the melodic phrase that follows. So what do I mean? If we look, the next low note is G sharp that your thumb will play, followed by A, followed by D sharp, followed by E, followed by A, followed by B, back to low E, and low E again. And each of those are dotted quarter notes that are going to be held for 3/8 notes time. So, if I was going to practice this, I might go, starting from the G sharp, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That gives you the contour of the low note, the bass line, for that first line. Once you have that, then start to add the high notes that you're playing with middle and index. And all of the chord shapes that he gives us are very dissonant, not pleasing to the ear. But as a whole, the piece is actually very intriguing and pleasing to the ear. So it'll make for fun practice. So the first, above the G sharp, we have G natural. So we have 1, 2, 3. You notice I'm holding the G sharp that we just played as part of the bass line. The bass line sustains while the top notes change. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So the first line in context. And what's wonderful is the second line repeats the first. Go ahead and pause the video and work through the first 2 lines. Perfect. Now, if we follow the same procedure, we're starting on line 3. We start the line with that low E again. We're going to skip through that. We're going to go to the 4th, 8th note beat. And we're just going to again play the bass notes for that line. So we start out with D sharp, to A, to G, to E. Repeats. D sharp, to A, to G, to E. Once you feel comfortable with that, add the top notes. We have D sharp and C sharp, A and G, low G and B flat, E. And it repeats. So the entire third line. 1, 2, 3. 4, we're going to again follow the same procedure. We're going to start on the 4th, 8th note of line 4 and just play the bass line. So we have F natural, F sharp, G, back to F sharp, F net. So we have F natural, F sharp, G, back to F sharp, E, A, C, when we add the notes above, the only tricky part for us is the first 2 chords take place in the 3rd position. So we have F and E natural rather than the open string E natural. We're going to play it on the 2nd string at the 5th fret. And if you notice in your score, there's a little 2 in a circle. That tells us that that E is going to be on the 2nd string. So we have, starting on line 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Go ahead and pause the video and practice that line. Build everything off of your bass notes. Great, welcome back. So, line 4 and line 5 repeat. So now, all we're left with is the end of the piece. Line 6 starts out just as the beginning of the piece did, only we only do the first measure, which then repeats. And you'll notice that there's a diminuendo, a quieting and kind of lessening that occurs on that repeat. The last line is all repetitious material until the very last measure. So I'm going to focus on the last measure. We have a low E that is going to ring through the entire measure, but the remainder of the measure, the top voice, comes in on the 7th eighth note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That will give you the basis for the entire piece technically. Now, go ahead and pause the video, work through this, and then I'm going to give you some musical ideas that will help really bring out some of the tension and resolution that this piece focuses on. So, we want to think of that very first note, that low E, not as the beginning of a sentence, but as the conclusion of a sentence that we didn't hear. Now, what do I mean by that? Rather than that first E on beat 1, feeling like it starts what comes after it, we want all the low E's to conclude what came before it, even if nothing came before it. What this does is, as we start the top voices on the 4th eighth note, all of those notes phrase forward to the next beat. So we have, this is the end of some non-existent musical phrase. Beginning of the next phrase. The conclusion of that phrase. And what this does is, it propels the piece forward with momentum because we're directing our phrases forward. If I go a little faster, listen. Every phrase is directed forward. Now, we also have a lot of repetition in this piece. I always like to vary the tonal color that I get when I play something that repeats. Julian Bream always used to say, don't play the same thing twice. So, if the first is played over the sound hole, maybe the second, the repeat of that phrase will be played a little bit more ponticello, could be played a little bit more tosto. Whatever you do, vary your phrase, vary your tone color. So we might have now there's even more intrigue as we listen to the piece. So we look at line 3. We have the same phrase that then repeats twice. And again, I would apply that same principle of variation. We get to the 4th line. We have that brand new phrase, the one that starts in the 3rd position. And then it varies. Again, vary your tonal color. Always directing your phrases to the next low E. Go back and take a listen to the initial recording of this piece and you'll hear that I'm directing each phrase towards the low E. Pause the video, and I look forward to hearing you perform this.